So, James Nagle, I believe that's the correct pronunciation, has surfaced with some fairly astonishing takes. He suggests that while Jalen Carter is unequivocally the most gifted defensive player on the Eagles roster, the package that comes with him, the 15-yard penalties for unnecessary roughness, the occasional lapses in effort, and the concerns about his conditioning, makes the idea of trading him not entirely unappealing. The logic is that committing $40 million annually to him carries significant risk, and Philadelphia could recoup a massive haul of draft capital in return. I mean, honestly, where does one even begin to dissect that proposition? Yes, paying any player that kind of money carries inherent risk. However, I strongly disagree with the characterization of there being questionable effort or systemic conditioning problems with Carter. And look, when you're a dominant force on the defensive line, when you're an absolute wrecking ball, penalties are part of the territory. You're going to draw flags, including the 15-yard variety. It's an occupational hazard when you consistently play on the edge. I'm not saying it's a desirable trait or that I enjoy watching drives extended by penalties, but it is a reality of his playing style. As long as the foundational culture in Philadelphia remains strong, these are manageable issues. The argument for trading him hinges on acquiring that massive haul of picks with the hope of drafting his replacement, essentially trying to find another Jalen Carter. The irony, of course, is that the Eagles were only in a position to draft him in the first place because of the very same question marks that surrounded him pre-draft: the off-field incident, the character concerns. The entire league was stunned when he fell to them. It felt like an undeserved stroke of luck for an already stacked roster. They capitalized on an opportunity that fell into their lap because they were picking outside the top 10, a position strong teams rarely find themselves in when selecting a player of his caliber. Now, in theory, trading him now could be viewed as the gift that keeps on giving. You could cash in that lottery ticket for an even bigger return. But by doing so, you're essentially banking on replicating that same incredible fortune, hoping that with those later first-round picks, you can find another disruptive force of nature. It's a gamble on repeating history. The real question is, do you pull that trigger if you believe the team is at a crossroads where a reset is necessary? Do you feel that the current roster foundation requires a significant rebuild? If the answer is yes, then you make a move like this. It would mirror what franchises like the Kansas City Chiefs have done when they looked at their roster and concluded there wasn't enough of a sustainable core to build upon for the long haul. If the Eagles' front office genuinely feels that way, then executing a trade like this is a tacit admission. It's saying, we don't believe we are legitimate Super Bowl contenders within the next year, maybe even two. It signals a shift in focus toward building for a future window, much like a team punting on the current season, or even the next, in hopes of constructing a roster capable of sustained dominance over a 5-year period. Again, let me be clear. I am not advocating for this approach. I'm not a fan of it in any way, shape, or form. Here's why. First and foremost, this defense remains formidable. It's an elite unit. Secondly, and this is the bigger issue for me, the offensive line presents a far more significant question mark. I believe Jalen Hurts, even with just Devonta Smith and Saquon Barkley, and yes, even if they eventually move on from A.J. Brown, can show substantial improvement. But the offensive line is the true linchpin. You have veteran players on the verge of retirement, and we all know Lane Johnson's eventual departure is looming. If the front office looks at that situation and feels a complete overhaul of the trenches is necessary, you're entering a cycle of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You're patching holes in a leaky ship, and your roster building becomes a scattered, inconsistent process. There's also the financial flexibility aspect. Making a move like this frees up significant capital. You could then, in a subsequent offseason, replicate the aggressive all-in moves that define the Eagles' rise, the acquisitions of players like A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley. You could use the draft capital and cap space to buy your way back into contention. Look at the trajectory from 2022 to 2024. I know there were ups and downs, but consistently, from 22 through 25, the Eagles were a bona fide top-tier team. They went to 2 Super Bowls. The years they didn't make it, coaching instability was more to blame than a lack of talent. So, it's a fascinating paradox. They have this nucleus, Saquon, Devonta, and if A.J. Brown is indeed traded as rumored, and now Jalen Carter is dangled, you have to ask, is this the prime? Is this the absolute peak of this specific roster's window? If you move Carter now, you're looking at a 2 to 3 year window, where you're trying to maximize the remaining core of Saquon and Devonta. But would they be as reliable when it truly matters without that dominant defensive anchor? It starts to feel reminiscent of what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did when they built a late-stage super team around Tom Brady. They had a nice core, a solid foundation, but they needed to supplement it with veterans like Gronkowski and Antonio Brown to put them over the top. They were patching together a contender, not building one from the ground up with young, foundational pieces. Honestly, I'm on the fence about even entertaining these kinds of discussions because the likelihood of it happening feels so low. And if it did actually transpire, it would be one of those moments where you just have to tip your cap and say, this is why Howie Roseman is Howie Roseman. You'd have no choice but to sit back and trust the process. I don't know the intricate details of his master plan, but you have to trust that his track record warrants the benefit of the doubt. He knows more than we do. However, you have to be cautious with takes like this. It's easy to go on a wild goose chase, pursuing speculative scenarios that have no basis in reality. I try my best not to do that. I want to focus on what actually matters. But when I saw this idea, I thought, you know what? Let me put it out there and gauge the response. If the reaction is overwhelmingly negative, this is stupid. Why are we wasting time on this? That's valuable feedback. But if you're in the mindset of, it's the off season, let's have some fun, let's speculate wildly and think about potential options, then I'm all for that too. At the end of the day, I just love talking football. I want to keep the conversation going throughout the off-season as much as possible. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Not only would you make a move like this, but should the Eagles even consider it? And also, let me know if this type of video resonates with you, or if you'd rather I stick to more concrete topics. I read every single comment. Whether you agree or disagree, let's get some discussions going, maybe even some friendly debates. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to have you as part of it. My goal is to create something we all feel genuinely connected to, something we're truly excited to be a part of. I believe we're well on our way to achieving that. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It genuinely helps with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.